The contemporary pagan holiday calendar is based on astrological timings. We celebrate the solstices, the longest and shortest days of the year, as well as the equinoxes, when day and night are of equal length. And we celebrate the halfway point between each solstice and each equinox. These are called cross-quarter days in many traditions, simply since they occur halfway through a quarter section of the year. If you visualize the year as a circle, and you draw two lines dividing the circle in half vertically and horizontally, then add two lines to divide those quarters into eighths, you end up with an image of 8 evenly spaced lines intersecting the edge of the circle. This way of visualizing the year is where the term wheel of the year comes from. It looks a little bit like a wagon wheel. I've taught introduction to paganism classes many times over the years, and one of the funnier things that happens occurs when I introduce our holiday calendar. I frequently get the reaction, 8 high holidays? That's a lot of holidays. And I suppose, depending on your basis of comparison, it could be. In the Christian supremacist culture around us, there are really only 2 high holidays that most of us are aware of, Christmas and Easter. These are the holidays from the Christian calendar that are so important to that faith tradition that they've been included in the national calendar, to the point that most federal and state employees, not to mention lots of other industries, have the day off of work. When your point of reference is the influence of Christianity on secular culture, yes, 8 holidays is a big jump from 2 holidays. The thing is, I would invite us to look a little further back in time. Most cultures prior to the Reformation in the Western world engaged with a fairly robust holiday calendar. These holidays, even in countries where Catholicism was the order of the day, were opportunities to celebrate certain seasonal points, come together as a community, connect with the sacred, and generally share a big meal of some sort. This regular pattern was one of the many things that provided the structure for how interconnected a given region's culture was. Seeing each other regularly for reverence and celebration made a community stronger and more connected. It informed the culture of the region. Even if the reason for a holiday was that it was a particular saint's day in Catholic tradition, the real impact was the same: food, fellowship, festival. Expanding the lens outside Europe, in Mayan tradition, every 20th day is a festival day. The Yoruba tradition honors 6 major holidays. The Shinto yearly calendar includes 7 major holidays. And these are just the high points of the year. Most traditions include both major and minor feast days. My late father was stationed in Germany when he was in the army. He was fortunate enough that he was Army intelligence and was undercover, so he got to live off base and basically incognito. He was able to experience living in Germany without some of the barriers that military service does tend to include. Where he was stationed, about every 4 to 6 weeks, there was some sort of large festival that brought the community together for food and celebration. He thought it was wonderful. It gave people a chance to shake off the doldrums, see each other, and cut loose a little bit. He mentioned it many times over the years as a good way for a society to function. When I see a pattern repeat across widely diverse cultures, I tend to regard it as a piece of our human spiritual DNA. Shared approaches in different traditions are one of the many things that underpin my own perspectives about life, meaning, and connection. If most of the human world thrives when we come together about once every month and a half or so, there's a reason for it. It's worth exploring that idea more to see where it fits in our lives now. The big sacred feast days have transformed into our own street festivals, concerts, fairs, and other gatherings. Growing up in Frederick, Maryland, the county fair was so important that we got a day off of school for it, and the many kids in the agricultural programs, they weren't even at school that week, and it was fine. When I worked in downtown Frederick, the In the Streets Festival was one of the centers of my yoga studio's business year. We planned for it all year long. Each of us does have a holiday calendar, even if we haven't really thought about it. That calendar is a combination of personal milestones, yearly events, and seasonal observances. In a workshop at the Sacred Space Conference in 2019, author and teacher John Beckett described regional paganism, allowing our beliefs to vary by region. He said that paganism should be the intersection of the ancestors, the gods, and the physical space in which we live and practice. Also, if the name John Beckett is unknown to you, he is also a Unitarian Universalist pagan and a wonderful writer. Along with festivals and fairs, there are other turning points in the year here in Western Maryland. The gardeners tend to get super excited around Mother's Day. That's one of our big markers for when summer vegetables can be planted without danger of frost. The hunters and the fishers know exactly when those seasons open. My friends who are water babies and love going swimming look forward to Memorial Day all year long, simply because for them it is the day that the outdoor pools and lakes open for swimming. If we allow our perspective to shift just a little in order to recognize our personal markers as sacred, in addition to celebratory, an opportunity for deeper connection opens to us. One of the pieces of deprogramming that a lot of pagans have to wrestle with is the idea that sacred can only mean serious, that sacred can't also be fun. The truth, of course, is that if we expand our view outside Western culture or to the times before the Christian conversion, most sacred holidays contained elements of fun. Parading through the streets dressed as mountain spirits and jangling loud bells is fun, in addition to driving back the dark spirits of winter for the growing season. Blessing the fruit trees through singing to them, wassailing them, is fun, in addition to being deeply connecting for all who participate to the cycle of growth in life. Our personal wheels of the year contain many fun things. What I would encourage us to do is to peel back the next layer. What is sacred there? What does the celebration tell you about where you are in the year? What does it tell you about how you're connecting to your community? This approach, understanding that our personal wheel of the year is unique to us and more meaningful in specific ways, also allows for some revision work around days that are challenging. The night I left my abusive first marriage is August 31st. I told my abuser I was leaving, I packed a bag, and I left. I never slept again at that home or stayed more than a few hours. And that day every year could be dark, depending on whether I focus on the pain that preceded my leaving that life or on the sovereignty that action returned to me. For me, August 31st is my liberation day. I spend that day every year reminding myself how strong I am. I celebrate the way I escaped and overcame that darkness, and I honor the person I have become and the life I've built since leaving. My late father's birthday is May 31st. I miss him terribly. He was a wonderful father. Again, there's a possibility here for that day to be one of pain, and there is definitely grief present. But my sister and I built a new tradition. My dad absolutely adored both Popeye's fried chicken and margaritas. So on or near his birthday, my sister and I sneak some Popeyes and pre-mixed margaritas into the cemetery and have a picnic on his grave. We tell stories about him and discuss our childhoods. We talk about what we think he might say or think about the world. We tidy up his headstone if needed. We pour out a little bit of margarita as an offering, and I think he would love this tradition. I feel like I can hear him laughing about it. And it is sacred and fun and sad all at once. These are two complex, sacred points in my own wheel of the year. They each have holiday traditions around them, specific observances that only occur on those days. They each have an aspect of sacredness. They connect to something bigger than just me and are focused on my relationship to the greater tapestry of life. So coming back to John Beckett's point about regional paganism, there are also turns in the natural cycle that I celebrate. For me, the first snowfall is still absolutely magical. The day shifts according to the weather, but each time I meet it in the same way. I race outside, I watch the flurries, and then I begin making plans for, or just begin making, some sort of big savory dinner. It's usually a soup or a stew. I get super excited about the onset of soup season, and the first flurries are my marker for that. This weather marker is how I recognize my personal turn toward the winter season. It sets off a whole series of shifts within my household. It is very much a pivot point in the year for me. Likewise, I mark summer by the arrival of the lightning bugs or the fireflies, depending on your dialect. When I see that first bright greenish flash in the darkness, I know summer has already arrived. It is always a moment of great joy and wonder at the incredible beauty of this one world we share. I think one of the largest draws to pagan practice is the idea of becoming more connected to the earth. There is deep within all of us an ancestral memory of what it is to belong to the land we live with, to live in alignment with our region's cycles. The thing is, we can begin cultivating that connection whether we are pagan or not. The seasons change. Some activities occur every year, whether that's a trip to the beach during summer, a visit to the Maryland Renaissance Festival in autumn, heading to the pumpkin patch in late October, remembering someone we lost on their birthday, or marking the day when we changed our own lives. This set of dates is our personal wheel of the year, the pattern we repeat. And once we can see a pattern, we can then start interacting with it more meaningfully. Encountering the sacred is largely about recognition and intention. And remember that the sacred can still be fun. So perhaps when you visit the beach, you can spend a morning walking along the edge of the ocean, marveling at the seashells you see and the vast power of this life-giving and life-taking force. Maybe when you go to the Maryland Renaissance Festival, you also note that it occurs during the harvest season in our region. Perhaps you add some items to your festival wear that represent what you wish to harvest this year, or what you wish to take into winter with you. If you garden and engage in that rush of planting right around Mother's Day, perhaps you speak to the Green Mother as well, that force that turns our seedlings into flowers and fruit. Intention, recognition, working with the pattern we already practice in a more meaningful way. And I'll offer you one last thought in closing. We can consciously reshape days that are hard by allowing them to also be holy. Passage through darkness is another piece of shared human spiritual DNA. We see this pattern repeat in the mythologies of every culture and in the lifetime of every human. We can feel grief, rage, disappointment, and isolation, and also recognize those feelings as something we are surviving and the marker of something we survived. We can honor those days in ways more akin to the holidays we associate with death and the underworld. Perhaps there are days where you need to mourn. If so, then build a mourning altar, lean in. Perhaps there are days where you need to rage. If so, visit a break room or another place for safe destruction. Lean in. Find the thread of the sacred and hold it until you come out the other side. This too is real. This too is spiritual. So think about your wheel of the year. Consider the turning points in your personal practice, the important days, the festivals or events that you never miss, the hard days that you always take note of, and the moments that connect you to the changing of the seasons. This year, perhaps you move into those days and events with more intention. To be in alignment with the land we belong to is to turn with the wheel of the year, to feel the passage of the seasons down to our bones and echoed in the lives that we build here and now. From seed to harvest to cold winter to the return of the sun, the wheel turns ever onward. Perhaps now that you see the pattern, the turning of your own wheel, You can choose to let that turning support your own search for truth and meaning, your own connection to this one beautiful world we all share and the life that you are building.